Hello, everyone. My guest today is Shruti Gandhi. She is the currently active at Array Ventures, where she's managing, obviously, a fund participating in many different companies, specifically B2B SaaS, some health and tech as well. She has a strong mix of operating and investing experience. She was before this, she was an investor at True, Samsung, Lightbank, HighBAR Partners, and the I2A fund. All right, Shruti, are you ready to take us to the top?
That sounds amazing. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So tell us quickly kind of where you are today, and then I want to capture more of your story. So what does Array focus on, and what's the fund size today?
Array focuses on enterprise deep tech companies. So founders that want to go solve big industries that are old but need reviving with data, analytics, machine learning, any strong tech. And then we love pairing that with other founders who have sold to that industry before. They know how to hustle, they know how to sell. We started about 3 years ago, and we're in our second fund now.
That's great. Are you married to any specific business model? Do you like SaaS more than pay as you go or more than an API model?
Not really. We believe in just revenue acceleration as fast as we can. So a lot of the programming we focus on when we invest in our companies is how to get from 0 to 1 and in ARR, and then from 1 to 10 million as fast as we can. So we have workshops that we put together for our founders once a quarter around this programming. We get some of the top CEOs to talk to our founders on how their playbook worked. And that's what we do, but not really any particular business model.
Got it. Yeah, you said on the site, I believe, that people should think of you as their first business development hire.
Exactly.
And why does that positioning work for you?
Frankly speaking, there are a lot of engineers who are looking to solve problems, but they've never sold before. And when you're starting out your teams, if you don't have that sales hire, which a lot of times people don't, you're not building a business, you're building a feature. And I've been in that position myself before, as I was starting a company out as an engineer for, in my previous life for 11 years. And so when I saw that need in the market, which is smart people solving big problems, if you could just add a business perspective in the company at that stage, the company, the size of the market that you're trying to address at that stage becomes suddenly very large, because now you're not just adding a little feature for this company here or there, but you're going after something very different. And so again, we help these companies think through what that large market looks like and where the customers sit within those large markets. So we say your first business development hire, and then we also use this term as like your second wave of customers, which is your first few friends might be your initial customers, but then how do you go find that fourth, fifth, 10th customer? So that's how we help these companies.
And Fund 1 3 years ago, how big was that?
Fund 1, we don't really share our numbers because they're through multiple mediums, but generally in the stage and size of 15 to 20 million.
Okay.
And then Fund 2 will be, for SEC reasons, I can't share because we're still fundraising.
Yep.
But it's going to be larger than that.
What do you mean through different mediums?
We actually didn't start out as a core fund. So we were, the idea was I was actually going to go start another company, but I was, through my current founders who had had exits to companies like Apple, McGraw-Hill, and so forth, they basically said that, hey, we love working with you, and you went to bat for us. We think there's a need for a investor like you in the market, who is really on the side of the founders and also helping them think through as their third, fourth co-founder. So we think that there's a need for that in the enterprise market. And so I knew I wanted to start a fund, but I didn't know that was right at the moment. So I thought I was going to go just.
Why did you want to do that, by the way? Why did you know you wanted to launch a fund?
Starting a fund actually, for someone like me, is investing in other people like me. There's a lot of pattern matching people talk about in venture, and that pattern usually is in people like themselves, right? So when I was starting the company out, people who didn't look like me, I was not comfortable approaching them. I was not comfortable going and asking for advice. And it felt more intimidating to go talk to someone who is not like me, frankly. And so that was, at that time, I didn't know that it was because the top is very different and it should change. But when I started thinking more and more about it, as I got into venture after that to learn more about it, I realized that the top needs to change. And I just knew that I was a person to make that happen because I had the right background as an engineer, as a founder, and then as an investor at the time to make this happen. But I just thought it was like a very much of a later in the stage, retire into the job kind of a game. I was wrong. We need people like me, more people like me in the market today. But that's why I'm glad I did it at the time. But I thought I would have been doing this maybe like in my, I don't know, late 40s or something.
Shruti, why go like the VC route though? Why not stick with the same thesis, invest in people like yourself, invest in great founders, but do it in a private equity capacity?
I don't understand the question.
Well, why decide to set it up as a VC fund instead of setting up as a private equity fund or a different investment vehicle?
I mean, private equity funds by nature come later. You're starting out a company at this stage which is two people in a garage and, just hustling at it and trying to figure out if this is a large problem, if we want to go talk to customers. I mean, that's like building things from ground up. It's like the same thing as why invest in Uber at the early stages versus at the,
Got it. This is a timing thing for you. You like to be on there at ground zero, right when everything's getting going, right at the beginning.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. It is helping founders at the earliest stages of inception of their ideas to make it a real company.
Got it. So you're getting in your check size, you're getting in at seed stage. So what, you're writing $500 to $1.5-ish million checks, something like that?
No, actually the rounds are called pre-seed these days, which means their founders are raising anywhere from $500,000 to a few $1,000,000. So we come in anywhere owning 8 to 10% at that stage. So the checks vary depending on how much they're raising.
Okay. But generally speaking, like what's a sweet spot for you, just to give us an idea?
The sweet spot is exactly that, right? Like $500,000 to founders, it's usually the first round of institutional money. So I have a idea. I have a few friends who might like that idea, and then a few angels who might invest in me. And usually those angels don't have the time to give to those founders. They have a real job somewhere else, and they're experts somewhere else. But that's when Array gets involved to actually shepherd those companies and help them think through a large market and then how they get to a Series A.
Yep. Okay, good. And do you usually like to take that whole round by yourself, or you're happy to be in a syndicate?
No, we love working with other people. We think starting a company needs every help you need. It takes a village. And so, yeah, we work and co-invest with a lot of our friends in the industry.
Tell me what you liked about Art19. Why'd you invest there? That's obviously in the podcasting space. There's a lot of hype right now about voice and voice data and specifically monetization there. What'd you like about Art19?
So we have a podcast as well called Array. Check us out as well. It's focused on AI, data, machine learning, and founder to founder, journey around what they did to succeed. So
you need more episodes, by the way. I've listened and I'm like, why are there slack in here? You've published like 4 episodes this year so far. Publish more.
I'm glad you're listening, but it's my side job. It's my theory around starting that podcast primarily was I have access to some amazing people. And, as an immigrant coming out of no contacts, no networks, it was really, truly like I'm pinching myself when I have access to these amazing folks. And so I said, look, other people don't have access to these people. Let me just put the messaging from these people out there in case it, helps other people. So that was the idea. But point taken, I have like 15 in the backlog. I need to learn from you.
That's awesome. You'll get it going. Okay, but back to Art19. Tell me what you like about them.
Well, so I understand all the pain in podcasting at every stage, as you do.
We both do. It is painful.
So, and most of the podcasting tools out there were more around around discovery, but not many tools around creation and selling to companies. If you go talk to like a New York Times or a large corporation, I mean, even though you and I are figuring this out, they actually have no clue, right? Like not to name one organization or other, but large corporations, that's not their core business. And so someone like Art19 demonstrated that they could not only work with those big companies, but also what they do that's very interesting is they put a marker. And so large corporations have the ability to take sponsors and and attract ad dollars. What's hard in podcasts today is you have to edit it out every time. What Art19 does really well is they allow you to put these markers and then you can swap these ads in and out anytime. So I love that dynamic approach around being able to change your sponsor on the fly. And then working with enterprise is something that they really excel at. That's why they work with some of the top podcasts in the industry.
Yep. No, the interesting thing that I see with these shows is you put an ad in, and that episode, maybe you say, okay, I'm selling, I'm making this up, 100,000 listens. Well, once that old episode hits 100,000 listens, technically you should be able to use that inventory and still monetize it, replace it with a new ad. But right now you have to go back and re-edit everything. There's no way to do that.
Well, use Art19 if you're
Yeah. What do you know how they charge? Is it a percent fee or what?
I think it's a recurring SaaS fee.
It's a SaaS model. Okay, yeah. Very good. What else are you looking at? Just because you have your own show, you're invested in Art19. What else gets you kind of excited about like the voice and voice data space in general? Do you see any interesting companies there?
Yeah, we have another company called Passage AI, which is in the conversational AI space. Which what they do is basically you're able to. It's a chatbot, right? But instead of communicating with a Kohl's or a Macy's over the regular mediums we do today, you can talk to Alexa and say, Alexa, talk to Kohl's about whatever, buying these pair of pants, right? So that's an interesting approach. But what we're also looking for is interesting ways to use voice in everyday life, and how enterprises can access and use and go after what Alexa and Google Home have done, but be more closer to their customer through the voice medium.
Yep. Last question here before we wrap up. Is there any sector that you're really excited about, but you haven't yet placed a bet in?
Actually, yeah, there are a lot of, the biggest reason why I got into something like this, like investing in venture and solving big problems, was I wanted to solve core fundamental needs in the world, which is food, water, shelter, all those kind of like the original Maslow hierarchy problems, right? Not the Wi-Fi and so forth. But we ended up investing in that Wi-Fi and connectivity and all those categories, which is great. And I love that. But what we largely think about as well is how do you go solve the problems in agriculture, in ocean, in food, in transportation? It's very large industries that affect our life and create a pain point that if we solve that there's a large opportunity to increase the world GDP by a huge percent. So we constantly think about those large markets. We haven't made a bet in agriculture or ocean tech or any of those industries yet. We have invested in transportation. A couple of our companies are a company called Zendar and X-Wing, but that use depth perception to solve the autonomous car and the autonomous airplane industry problems. But generally, we're open to anyone who's thinking large in any industry, and we want to hear how they solve these problems and how we can be their partner to make them succeed.
On paper, which of these investments right now has had the biggest return for you so far?
Simility.
Spell that?
Simility.
Okay. They're not on your website. Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. I missed it. Sorry.
Simility actually is a fraud detection solution, right? So what they started out with is we have a lot of fraud in banking, e-commerce platforms. You go and fund a Kickstarter campaign today. You have no idea if that is a real campaign or not. So these guys came out of Google with over 7 years of industry experience. They built out fraud tools for AdSense, AdWords, Gmail, a lot of Google products. And so my background is in security as well. My first job was a security engineer. And so when they pitched to me, it was very easy for me to see how their solution was different than the other competitors out there. So we were the first, we backed in their original rounds before they even had revenue. And
you're talking about the original seed round they did, the 3.5 from Excel, the Excel led.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you were on the back of that as a minority LP.
Exactly. Yeah. Not minority.
Minority investor. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like we partner with companies because of our tech background. We're able to see the technical solutions and how these companies are solving problems in large markets before others do. And then we often are the first backers. And we then help them get to larger investors later in the round. But yeah, Simility is doing pretty well.
That's great. Very good. All right, let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Wow. I don't know.
What's the last one you read?
0 to 1, but I feel like that's such a cliche.
Nah, it's not a cliche if it's the last one you read. Number 2, Shruti, what is your favorite, or sorry, is there a CEO that you're following or studying right now?
Not one. I think that you want to take again, I don't like these lists because usually there's not one. You pick good things and good practices from everyone. But yeah, I am fascinated by Elon Musk all the time not because he's just my hero, but just because he's able to do so much more and solve these big problems and raise money for these crazy ideas, and succeed in many ways. So it's mesmerizing in many ways.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the business or building the firm?
Many, but we like community management tools are very important. Everything we do is around community management. And so obviously Slack has taken a good approach to that, but we have a company called Mobilize that makes our life better. I use that to send out our newsletters. I use that to manage our LPs. I use that to manage our events and portfolio companies. And so community is a big part of what we do today. As I said, it takes a village, and we make sure our communities are cohesive and we're able to communicate with them regularly.
And number 4, how many hours of sleep are you getting every night?
I love to sleep. So it's over 8 hours.
That's great. You and me, but I'm 10 hours, 8 at night, and then probably a 2-hour nap every day. It's great.
What time do you nap?
Oh gosh. Well, so typically what happens is I work hard early in the morning from like 6 to 1 or 2. And then how kind of after lunch, you always kind of have a letdown and you really have to push hard. I said, you know what, Nathan, stop fighting it. Just give in, go nap for 2 hours. And you know what? I nap for 2 hours and then I wake up and I get another 6 or 7 hours of productivity. It's beautiful. That's
like we grew up with that hours actually. So growing up, our school started pretty early at 7. So we would have to wake up around that 6 or 5:30 time. And then after school, around 2, we'd come home, lunch, and take nap for a couple hours. Yep. Then did our homework. I really miss that. So I need to get into that.
Yeah, you figure you got 24 hours in a day. If you sleep 10, it leaves you 14, right? So it's, a 7-hour chunk, right, of working, and then a 2-hour nap in the afternoon, and then another 7-hour chunk, and then another 8 hours sleeping. And the 7 to 7:10 works really well for me, or 7 to 7:8.
I should try it out. Yeah. But I love to sleep. I can sleep in a rickshaw. I'm the sleeper on this airplane that everyone's jealous of.
That's so funny.
Free meal.
That's so funny. Okay, and what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
Married with an awesome husband. He works at Tesla. That's why I know that story pretty well inside out.
And any kiddos or no?
No kids yet, no.
No kids. All right, and you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 36.
36. Okay, last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
20-year-old said not to be afraid, just going after what you think. Well, don't forget to dream big and then go after it. I think my 20-year-old was, I was at that time an undergrad. I graduated around that time. So actually I graduated early, but I was too afraid to just go and experiment. And I worried a lot about plan B and backups. And, there's not much to lose at that time. So I would have done a lot more by this age if I was just that bold.
Guys, there you have it. Be bolder earlier from Shruti, now at running Array.VC. Biggest return on paper so far in terms of investments is Simility, an AI and ML fraud management kind of solution. Made a couple dozen investments. Most importantly, though, she decided to get into this VC world about 3 years ago with, call it a 15 to 20 million-ish dollar fund. Currently jumping in and and getting more capital essentially to invest. Loves spaces like voice, right, with her own podcast. Check that out. But made a big investment in Art19 in the podcasting space as well. Again, looking at big enterprise data plays. More importantly, though, people with big visions and underlying it all, doing some kind of world good, agriculture, food, ocean tech. She's looking for you. If you're in that space, reach out. Shruti, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan.